Welcome back to the workshop. Got a kitchen island project to talk about today? Let's get into it. Alright, so every project starts with inspiration. This is the idea that we're trying to replicate. As you can see, that price is a little bit crazy. So talked to the family members that wanted this and absolutely signed up to take on this project. First thing to do is to size the thing. So obviously they wanted to make this fit into the kitchen that they're going to be putting it in, so we were able to resize it. We came up with 38 inches high, 48 inches long, and 30 inches deep. Next thing to do is to determine materials. I looked around quite a bit to find legs that were similar to ones in the model. This is the closest that we could find. I found those on Etsy, which are relatively reasonable. And then went through the process of sizing the rest of the cabinet, laying out the pieces, and determining what I needed to buy to build this piece of furniture. So decided to go with maple for this project. I bought 3/4 inch thick maple plywood, and you're seeing me cut the panels out of that here. Found that nifty guide rail clamp that I used as a guide rail for my circular saw at Harbor Freight. Very inexpensive and helped quite a bit in making sure I had perfectly straight lines. A 4x8 sheet is just way too big to run through my table saw. Other than that, the only thing to point out here is I was using a blade with a fine tooth blade on it. You want very clean cuts when you're working with plywood like this, and that's what this gave me. Next, I'm starting to add some of the structure. These are actually the boards that are going to go around the top of the internal box. Now I'm going through the process of gluing and using the nail gun to connect the edges of the box together. This was a little bit trickier than I thought. I could have come up with a better clamping mechanism for this, number one. And then number two, one of the frame pieces I made maybe a 1/16 and a half too long, so I had to do a little bit of shaping at the end of this to make it fit together properly. Okay, so here we are with the top and bottom structure put in there. I ran out of battery, so I wasn't able to show all of it. You'll see on the top I used the pocket screws, which we'll show a lot more of later. Very solid way to join the thing. And then at the bottom you saw the angled pieces. We'll get to that later. Those were to hold the T-nuts to capture the bolts for the feet, but we'll get to more of that later. Now this is showing me locating the holes for the feet. We're going to use a T-nut to screw those in there, so I have to locate a hole, and I'll show you later putting the T-nut through there. Now drilling the hole for the T-nut. Now I'm going to show cleaning up that hole again for the M8 T-nut and show you putting that T-nut into place. And then here is the entire base frame. I added an additional board for support because all the weight will be I didn't want all the weight leaning on those angle pieces. Now this is showing me putting in the base piece, bottom floor. Just used the nails at first, eventually added some screws underneath as well, just to make sure it was all in there nice and solid. Now this is showing me laying out and putting together the front face for the cabinet. I built that out of 1x3 maple, and the center support piece, which I don't think I show on this video, putting it in here as a 1x4. But worked really well. This is where the pocket hole jig, the Kreg pocket hole jig and the pocket hole screws really did their job. This is the first project that I've used those on, and I'm sold. It is extremely solid, strong way to join wood, and especially for paint grade work like this, it is more than enough to do the job. I will absolutely be using that on many other projects moving forward. And here we go, installing the front face onto the rest of the cabinet box. Use the pocket hole jig and screws for the top, and then use screws through the frame on the bottom, and I added some of the brads as well, but went on there nice and solid. And here I'm adding the cross member for the drawer supports. I made the drawer slightly deeper than it was on the original piece just to make them more useful. Okay, now I'm cutting the boards for the drawer boxes. I don't show it in this video, but I also cut 1/4 inch pockets into those for the base of the drawers to fit into. And then here I'm putting the pocket screws in for the drawer facings. I didn't show cutting out the drawer pieces, but that was just measuring and cutting on the chop saw. And clamping up and putting together the drawer facings using the pocket hole jig again. I can't get over how useful that tool was, and I really was just blown away about how clean the connections were with that. I expected it to be a lot more sloppy, but it really is impressive how clean you can make that and how structurally strong that is. And this is showing the facing of the cabinet after I have it ready to glue up. You'll see that I've already routed out a shoulder for that 1/2 inch. That's the same 1/2 inch that I used for the bottom of the drawers, and you can see it fits in there nicely. I used the pocket hole jig to put screws in there, and you'll see next that I'm going to put glue in the bottom where that hits the groove, and then make sure I'm applying pressure and putting the pocket hole screws to make sure that sits absolutely flush. Now this is showing that with the drawers installed. I didn't take a video of putting in the drawer slides or the structure that goes around that. I think my battery might have been dead when I was doing that, and I didn't want to slow down, but those are 24-inch slides, and they fit very nicely with the door, and looks good the way it turned out. And this is me routering out a pocket for the hinge to sit in. I wanted that drawer or that cabinet door face to sit nice and flush against the front of the cabinet, so I had to sink those hinges in just under 1/4 of an inch. And here we are with everything put together. There's going to be glass in those cabinet doors. I have routed out the shelf for that. I'm going to wait until that's painted before I put the glass in there. I also have a, I guess, 1/3 shelf that's all the way in the back of that cabinet portion. I didn't show putting that in there, but it was just a 1x10 board, and then some support structure that connected to the walls of the cabinet.